Our shelf supports. Now don't anybody get alarmed. We're going to get to the top in a minute. I just kind of wanted to tell you what I had done in just a minute. I got to tell y'all now, look. As we're doing this, episode 18 I think is uploading. And I know nobody watches the credits at the end. I understand that. But you might want to on that one. Actually, what you might want to watch is just past the credits. Crystal couldn't help herself. She's back here laughing now. I'm over here working on one of these poplar pie safes, and I turn around and the door falls off and clunks me in the head. I know, I'm going to hear all about the safety issues of that and whatever. Probably get chastised, boiled in oil and all that stuff, but it was pretty funny, come think of it. And so y'all check it out. It's just a clunk on the head. No damage done. I was worried about the door though. Okay, so again, number 18, go past the credits. It's just a little blurb there real quick. Now, this is what the shelf support's going to look like. And what I've done is I went through and I've drilled 1, 2, 3, 4 holes and countersunk them. It doesn't take a lot, so don't get carried away. Now the way these are going to sit, can you see that? Can we see this? This is going to sit in here just like this when everything is said and done. And then between each one of these is going to be a cleat. And that cleat is what then the shelf gets knots and the shelf sits on. Pretty simple actually. Now, in a typical case when I'm doing them, I usually turn them this way. But I don't want, if I do that in this one, I got this little protrusion right here that's setting out past, and I don't want that, so I'm just going to turn them this way. That's basically how they work. Okay, let's get to the top. Oh yeah, there's one last thing. Be sure to mark what your bottoms on these are, because if you don't, and when you're going in there putting them in, if you get them off, there's no guarantee they're going to line up. The top on this, I thought about because I wanted something simplistic, something you could do either on a table saw or you could do with a hand plane. In my case, I did it with the router bit. So all I'm doing is just a 45-degree chamfer, and you can see I got about a 1/4 inch above that. And what this does, now there's a reason I wanted this. You could just do a bull nose, which means you round over the top and the bottom. But the reason I'm doing this, and what I wanted, if you look under here, you've got a shadow line. That shadow line is going to be our friend, because we're going to hinge this top. And when we hinge this top isn't going to sit down dead tight all the way along the side. When the hinges are in, it's going to be up just a little bit. That makes the top shut nice. You don't want to try to fit this top perfectly flat with the hinges. If you do and anything moves, it's going to pinch and bind and not want to lay flat. So this shadow line, that little teeny gap, if you can look, I don't even know if you can see it yet. I've just got the hinges sitting in there checking my router depth. Can you see that little bit of a line back in that corner? Very, very slight. But when you're looking at it, you don't even see it because you've got this shadow here. Make sense? Okay, to make the top, the first thing we got to do is cut everything to size. Now, the other thing I've got is I've got a pretty good overhang on this. 1.25 inches on the front and 1.75 inches on each side. And because I like that I like that overhang. I just think it finishes the piece off nicely. Looks good. And again, it gives us the shadow line. Now I'm going to be honest, I can't remember if we went over anything about, I think we did a little bit about cutting large panels to size and whatever, particularly cross-cutting. So just in case we didn't, I'm going to show you how I cut it to size. And you know, I feel sure most of you, a lot of guys have got a skill saw or something like that, and you can rig up and do the same thing. And this is how we cut a lot of panels. So we're going to do that, then we're going to hinge the top and finish it out. So let me get set up to cross cut this panel and we'll be good to go. Okay, what I've got here, this is a 60-tooth carbide tipped blade for my skill saw. And what I've got here, this is a base that's, they're pretty inexpensive, and I just simply mounted it to the saw, straight and square. You want to mount it straight with the blade. And this is a clamp. Now on this plate, you've got a guide right here. On the clamp, you've got a little runner right there. Saw rides in. Now, one of the things I have to do on this is, and again, yours would be different. I have to compensate for the blade to the edge of the guide, which in my case is 8 9/16. So all I'm going to do is just come in about 8 3/4. Take me a square, make sure I'm square. Clamp it down. I'm not tight on there. All right, here we go. Then now having that fine a tooth blade just ensures me that I get a really nice finish when I cut it and no tear out. It's that simple. And I'm square. Okay, I'm going to flip it. We'll turn the camera off and I'll flip it around. We'll do the other side. All right, my length is going to be 43 1/4. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to draw me, this is my cut line. Lay them 8 9/16. Set my clamp. Now, you know, here's the other thing. You know, depending upon what kind of skill saw or whatever it is you've got most of them have a straight edge on it here. You know, a simple board clamped across it, you could do the same thing. And you know, you could also come in, bandsaw it or jigsaw it close. Again, take a straight edge and board and put on there, and just use a flush trim router bit, and you'll be good to go. So don't get intimidated cutting wide panels. And if you've got a good crosscut sled for your saw or whatever, that works. But what you don't want to do is try to put something like this between a fence and a table saw and try to cut it. That's a good way to get hurt. A lot of guys use these type of systems also for cutting plywood and panels. And if you look around, they make some of these clamps that you can actually go from corner to corner on a sheet of plywood. So, good option. Okay, with it cut and square, now I'm going to route it. Now what I've got here, I've got a 45-degree chamfer bit. Now my panels are all 7/8, my tops. Yours may be 3/4, but I'm going to ease into this. So we're going to set this a little lower, go around 3 sides, just 3. Now if you're doing oak, which this is, you go easy on this cross grain, or on the flat grain rather, because I tell you what, that stuff can chip, tear out pretty easy. Now again, one of the reasons I chose this profile, when I said you could do it on a table saw, cutting this face edge would just be a simple rip. But to cut this end, you definitely want a sled or make you up some type of a cross cut. You do not want to try to run this again freehand. Just not a good idea. But depending upon how creative you want to get, you could also hand plane it in. Yeah, I know. Most of you think, I don't want to hand plane all that. Now you see that nipping just a little bit. That's because I'm picking up a little fuzz on the bottom. I'll do just fine. All right, I'm gonna run this other side and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna look at hinging the top. Okay guys, here's where we're at. Here's what I've done. I took I cut a mortise in the back for the hinges. Exactly like we did the ones on the post for the doors. Absolutely no difference. The only difference is I went just a little bit deeper. And again, we talked about that. I'm up, you know, the gap in the back of this is going to be not quite a 16th. I don't want quite that much. But again, I want a little bit of space there. I don't want this top. Here's what happens. If that top moves any at all, when it comes down, what it'll do is it'll hit in here and pinch. If we can take this top and just slightly, you know, just a little bit, have it where it's setting up just a little bit in the back and touching in the front, they lay much nicer, particularly when they're opening. And again, any wood movement, we're going to be fine. Now the other thing we're going to do, you saw what kind of reaction we got when you just got a big flat piece of wood sitting out here floating in the world, doing, you know, with no support. There's something you need to know. Holding a piece of wood true is not difficult. Once it's out of whack, if you will, that's a proper woodworking term. Crystal agrees. Yeah, when it gets out of whack, getting it back into shape, that's another animal. So one of the things we're going to want to do is we're going to put batons in here. A baton is simply a piece that goes the underside across the top. And that's going to help hold our top flat, because these tops are just floating out here in the world. Okay, so now the hinges I've got, these are not the fancy ball tip. They're just a standard butt hinge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and drill it, again, exactly like we did the doors, and get a screw in each side. Then we're going to set our top and mark it and get it hinged. So let me get these drilled and on here. All right, with the hinges screwed on, again, identical to the door. Let's just lift it up, mark it. The only difference in this is that instead of going into the edge here, we're going to be going under. Now, the question would then come up, well, you know, could we just do a flush mount? Meaning, could you just mount the hinge on the outside? You can. You can do that. But I just like the concealed look a little better. Okay. Now what I need to do is to mark my bottom. Now this time, again, we're marking it, we're going to be screwing into the bottom of this. And one more time, if you're using a set of hinges that are not, you know, that you don't know to be proper in alignment, you want to be careful. Now, one last thing. I set my hinge in 6 inches because I want it, you know, so it gives it good support. I don't want quite out here on the end as much. Okay, I'm going to have to get a little bit of help holding this so I can attach it. And camera's girl's saying, I didn't do my hair. And this is woodworking. Come along, dear. You can do this. I don't know if the YouTube people have got to meet camera girl. Turn around. You got to turn. You're gonna have to turn around. You got it. Here, give me that. All right. No. I want you to go over there and hold it just like this. What are you gonna do? Back to the camera? Let it down a little bit to the hinge. There we go. She's done this before, she just don't want you to know it. Steel screw slipping. It'll hold. You got it? The easiest way to do this is to lay it down and back. Okay, I got it. I got it. You gotta look at the camera. I got it. Let go a minute. Why are you whispering? Let me replace this one. I normally don't use the tool on these, but I've got the clutch set pretty light, but this is kind of hard to hold and not use it. All right. Ah, they got you. You're going to edit that, ain't you? I knew you would. Okay, you see what we got. No issue. Now, we got to get our batons on it, and we got to get our prop on it. So I'm going to get this turned around and get a little prop stick cut, and I'm going to show you how we do that. Okay, here's what I got. I made me a batten. It's 2 inches wide. I elongated the holes on each end a little bit. Actually, I just basically drilled a 1/4-inch hole and just rocked the bit a little bit. I cut a little 45-degree chamfer on each end, just took the chop saw and went chop, chop. And that's just so when it mounts, it kind of looks, you know, decent under here. Now what we've got, because of all of our inner workings, I simply shut it, reached under, drew a line. And that gives me, you know, my spacing. On this one I came in 4 inches on either side and then marked my center. The battens are 5/8 of an inch thick. So all I have to do, again, I just got to make sure I'm not interfering at all with my closing. Screw them in place. Up the clutch pressure a little bit. Settle. I'm using an 1.25 inch screw. So number 8. Now I want to make sure no problems. Now I put the other two on, and we now have a well reinforced and not going to warp top. So that means it ain't gonna get out of whack. Right? Yeah, camera girl says yeah. Not out of whack. You know, I didn't get those holes exactly centered in there, did I? I don't think it'll hurt anything. Like I said, holding this top where it needs to be is far smarter than hoping it don't warp, cut, do any of those things. All right, now we got to make something to hold it open. Now you notice I've got this pie safe back here I'm leaning against. Whatever you do, do not let these things go back. If you do, you're going to do some damage. Okay, let me make a prop stick and we're going to show you how that works. Okay, the infamous prop stick. This is about 1 1/8 wide, 3/8 thick. I cut a 30-degree angle on it. I just simply sanded a little round in, drilled a hole, countersunk it. I've got a number 6. I had a number 6, a number 6 by 5/8 screw. That should be enough. Now, this simply sets in here so it can pivot. All right, we just need to get this in below the surface. Now, I want you to notice something here. The point is up. And the reason for this is when this rotates, we're going to make a little notch for this to catch in. So let me let camera girl get her camera back and we'll get that. Okay. Simply set your lid at whatever degree you want. You know, again, don't have it too far back. That way it could tip over backwards. Make sure you've got enough weight leaning forward to be able to support it. Mark it. I'm not going to be tapping hard here. As long as you're about an 1/8, 3/16 deep on your notch, you're fine. And that's a wrap, guys, on this episode. We now have a hidden compartment. Once we get our bottom in here, when it's shut, you're going to be hard pressed to tell that top isn't just a solid top. Now, you could, if you wanted to, you could drill this and up here and take you some rare earth magnets and glue them in there. Let me grab something real quick. This is a little product I picked up at Woodcraft thinking about these. It's a little different. It's just a magnetic latch. Just a magnet. So what I'm going to do on the back side of here, I'm going to, as you can see, this simply, that little thing holds. This thing will simply screw in, and then I'm just going to screw this to the underside. And I'm probably going to put a couple on here. Again, this just helps me to keep that top pulled down. You don't have to have it to keep it closed, obviously. The weight of the top's going to do that. But this also gives you a little bit of resistance. And but it's also going to help out here to keep some pressure forward, so that if there's any issues, again, it's more about help keeping that top stable. So I'll put a couple of them in here, maybe 3, I don't know. I think I've got enough for 2 each. I'll just mount it back here and hide it, and that'll be that. I know you like that pop stick, don't you? All right. So, y'all guys know we're getting, we got to do the backs. We got to cut the shelves to fit. Now, on those shelves, those batons, we're going to be using exactly the same thing. Again, them shelves are just wood floating. So we'll be doing some of them. And then we got to get to the tins. Okay, see you next time.